Welcome back to Mama Drama and Trauma. I'm your host, Jenny Kuemmel, and this week's True Talk is one that hits deep because it's about that moment when clarity finally comes. Not the soft kind that gently arrives like sunshine after the storm. No, this kind of clarity burns first. It rips through you, it tears down the version of life you thought you had. And only after it destroys everything false does it start to heal you. That was February for me. Month 7 after the end. The first 6 months were about surviving, trying to make it through one breath, one day, one panic spiral at a time. But February, that was when something started to shift. The grief didn't feel as loud, but it was heavier somehow. And the anger was different. It wasn't explosive anymore. It was quiet and sad. And within all of that, something new began to grow. Clarity. It wasn't peaceful at first. It hurt to finally see everything for what it really was. But that was the month I stopped looking backward and started facing forward. That's what I want to talk about today. Not just finding me again, but what it really feels like when you start to come back to yourself after being lost in someone else's storm for far too long. When clarity hurts before it heals. No one tells you how painful clarity is. They talk about closure like it's some neat healing moment, but it's not. For me, it came in little pieces. That Super Bowl weekend was one of those little pieces for me. The kids were supposed to be with their dad, and I was planning to go to my brother and sister-in-law's to watch the game. And I did end up going and just started to settle in when I got the phone call from the kids. I had snacks, plans, and a tiny bit of excitement to just feel normal again. Just a few hours of pretending life wasn't so heavy and a chance to get out of the house. But then everything changed. The kids called and said they didn't feel comfortable staying at their dad's because his girlfriend was coming over. They hadn't met her yet and they just weren't ready. And they were feeling like he was choosing her over them. And honestly, they weren't wrong to feel that way. They had every right to have whatever feelings they had because they were learning too and they were trying to figure it out. So they came home and I came home too. We all sat in the living room together that night, all 4 of us. No noise, a little bit of laughter, not near the energy as usual. Just a quiet, heavy kind of sadness in the air. We still watch the Super Bowl because that's what we do. We show up. Maybe not as loud and crazy as usual, but we were there, together, existing. But the whole thing felt hollow. My husband did drop food off that night for the kids that he and his girlfriend had made, and on the surface, that was thoughtful, but underneath it all, it just made the hurt deeper because we could all feel what that meant, that his priorities had changed, that his kids weren't first anymore, that we weren't his home anymore. And I remember watching my boys that night and seeing the realization hit them too. And it broke something inside me that I'll never forget. It wasn't anger that night. It was grief. It was the death of a version of our family that they'd known their whole lives. That's what clarity felt like. It wasn't some grand awakening. It was quiet, heartbreaking understanding that life would never look the same again. The turning point, shifting the focus back to me. I think one of the hardest things about divorce is realizing how much of yourself you gave away without even knowing it. When you've spent years being someone's wife, their support, their calm, their constant, you forget what it feels like to just be you. And that's what hit me in February. I started realizing that I had been pouring every ounce of my energy into someone who didn't even care anymore. I had been trying to fix what was broken, trying to hold together a family that he had already let go of, trying to make sense of choices that were never mine to make. And one day it just clicked. I didn't have to keep doing that anymore. I remember driving home from one of my therapy sessions with Dr. Denise and saying out loud, I'm done trying to fix something that doesn't want to be fixed. And for the first time, I felt this tiny spark of peace because I realized I still had so much life left to live, and I didn't have to spend it trying to make someone else see my worth. That was the start of me shifting my focus back to me. I started walking more, and not because I wanted to get into shape, but because moving my body made me feel alive again. I was still journaling, not writing about him, but writing about me, what I wanted, what I felt, what I dreamed about. And I started asking myself questions I hadn't thought about in years. What do I like? What makes me feel calm? What kind of woman do I want to be now? It wasn't about rebuilding the old me. It was about discovering the woman who had been buried underneath years of pain. And that woman, she was strong. She had survived the unimaginable, and she was ready to stop surviving and start living. Anger as a stage of clarity. There's something no one tells you about healing. You can't skip the anger. You know how I know? Because I tried. I tried to be the bigger person, the one who stayed calm and composed, the one who forgave quickly because that's what good people do. But inside, I was on fire. I wrote things I wouldn't say out loud. I thought things I wasn't proud of. And I cried tears that were more like screams than sobs. My journal was full of rage and confusion and disbelief. I needed to get it all out because if I didn't, I was going to drown in it. Looking back, I don't regret a single word of it because that anger was the bridge between pain and acceptance. It wasn't bitterness, it was truth. It was me finally saying, no more. Anger taught me what my boundaries were, it showed me what I deserved, and it reminded me that my feelings were valid, even the ugly ones. And if you're in that place right now, if you're angry, if you're exhausted, if you're done pretending you're okay, I want you to hear this. That anger doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. It makes you awake. You can't heal from what you refuse to feel. And that anger, as scary as it may feel, is just another sign that you're finally done settling for less than you deserve. Healing is quiet work. By the end of February, the chaos started to settle. Not because anything got easier, but because I got stronger. I started noticing small moments that told me I was healing, even when it didn't feel like it. I'd go the whole morning without crying. I'd catch myself laughing at something my boys said. I'd look in the mirror and see a woman who still looked tired, but not broken anymore. And that's what healing looks like. Quiet progress you don't always notice in real time. It's realizing you didn't check his social media that day. It's walking through Target and not crying when a song comes on that used to hurt. It's being alone in your own house and not feeling empty. Healing isn't glamorous. It's 1,000 tiny moments that slowly piece you back together. And that's where I was in February. I was still hurting, I was still processing, but I was also rebuilding. I was figuring out how to be both mom and me again, how to protect my kids while also showing them it's okay to fall apart sometimes, how to let them see my humanity without making them carry my pain. And the more I leaned into that, the more peace started to find me. Not all at once, but in small, unexpected ways that whispered, "You're going to be okay." Finding peace and becoming me. By the end of the month, I realized something that changed everything for me. I wasn't trying to find the old me anymore. I was becoming someone new. For so long, I thought healing meant getting back to who I used to be. But that version of me, the one who lived in survival mode, who kept trying to fix everyone else and who ignored her own needs, she wasn't who I wanted to be anymore. The woman I was becoming was softer but stronger. She knew her worth. She had learned to stand alone. She had found beauty in her own company. I stopped asking, why did this happen to me? And started asking, what is this trying to teach me? What is this trying to show me? And that's where peace started to grow. Because even though I still had hard days, days where the tears still came out of nowhere, days where the loneliness still stung, I could finally see that everything breaking was also everything rebuilding. That month taught me that you can lose everything you thought mattered and still be okay. Because what's meant for you, peace, purpose, joy will always find its way back. And I think that's what finding me again really meant. It wasn't about going back, it was about finally coming home to myself. If this Truth Talk hit home for you, please take a second to share it or leave a comment about what finding yourself again means to you. You never know who your story might help. And if you're walking through your own version of clarity right now, come and join our community over on social media, Momma, Drama, and Trauma. That's where we talk about the hard stuff, motherhood, healing, heartbreak, and finding peace after the storm, because you are never alone in this journey. As always, you are strong, you are worthy, and your story matters. Until next time, take care of you.